Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and an absolute pleasure to have a man who, underneath the shirt that he's wearing, there's probably a big S, and it doesn't stand for Superman, it stands for Super Bold. He's the author of the best-selling book, Super Bold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. But I also need to do this, Fred, before I actually introduce you. You're also the founder of 1-800-Dentist, the most successful dentist referral service in the US that you ran with your business partner for over 30 years and generated in excess of $1 billion. And I want people to hear that, over $1 billion in revenue. And you currently run the Fred Joyal company. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome, coming in all the way from Rhode Island in the US, talking just before he has a dinner with his business partner, Mr. Fred Joyal. Welcome to the podcast.
Darren, it's awesome to be here. And, I look forward to diving into this topic. It's something I'm very passionate about. And, and I know that in Australia, where some of your audience is, there's that tall poppy syndrome, which we can touch upon. But I don't think it's just for Australians. I think it's pretty pervasive.
I think you're right. And even in Australia, there's, a lot of the tall poppy syndrome stuff has been around for many, many years. There's an undertone, though, of that starting to change. And I think because we're more of a global economy, more a global community, it's starting to shift. But when I was in America this time last year and just listening to people and talking to people, there's this overwhelming undertone of positivity and optimism and building other people up, which actually still doesn't exist in Australia. And I'll just put my hand up and say that, right? There'll be people who disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But for the vast majority, yeah, we still got that. So, which even means the topic we'll talk about today in terms of being bold is even more relevant.
Sure.
So, love to delve into a little bit of your background. So, you've been in business for many years. You're now a business advisor, international keynote speaker, and also a podcaster. In fact, you've had 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
Where did it all start for you, and what made you get into and founding 1-800-Dentist, and then led you to do what you do today?
So my real career in life started when I walked into an advertising agency for the first time in my late 20s, because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I had done every conceivable dumb job just to make money. And then I walked into an agency and I said, oh, these are my people.
Mm-hmm.
I could do this. I could see a career in this. And I got very excited about going to work every day. And I loved it. But the career arc is terrible in advertising because it swoops up until you're 50 and then it falls off a cliff. And I would see them lay these guys off who were making hundreds of thousands of dollars. They'd get laid off and they'd be like 52 and they couldn't get a job.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm not sticking around for that to happen to me. And then just a guy I knew came to me. I had worked with him on some small entrepreneurial product, which he bungled completely. But he had this moment of brilliance because 800 phone numbers had just come out in the US, and he registered a couple of them, 800 brokers and 800 marketing and 800 dentists. And he let the phone number ring to his house for 5 years. He didn't, and then he saw me in advertising, and he said, "I think you could turn this into a business." And he had the rough idea how it would work, But I said, "Well, I'm not working with you because you don't work. I have been with you. Uh, and he said, no, 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 I just license it to you. And, and I knew nothing about dentistry and I had never run a business before. But at that point, I was young enough and naive enough to think I could pull it off. And one of my best friends wanted to quit his job as a stockbroker.
Hmm.
And because he says, I'm just tired of losing people's money so I can make good money. And no, he's that, and he says, I'm losing my soul. Um, and so we started it and we beat the streets for because dentists didn't advertise at the time. We carved a path and created marketing for dentistry.
Hmm.
And we found 18 dentists to go along with it in Los Angeles. And we ran radio spots that I wrote. I mean, we did everything ourselves. We had to invent every aspect of the business because there was no template for it. It wasn't like a Taco Bell or a McDonald's or something. There was nothing. We had to figure out the scripts to sell it, to figure out the advertising, how to buy the advertising, how to answer the phone, how to convert those people into potential patients,
Mm.
and manage to eat at the and pay our nominal rents at the time. But we were young, we could live on almost nothing, and we got 50 phone calls the first day.
The
And
first day.
yeah, we just started running the ads in Los Angeles, and one day we did a small ad buy, and we went, "Holy crap! This what we're telling the dentist might actually be true that we're going to get them patients." And we just started adding doctors, spending more money, and then adding cities, and until had every major city in California, jumped to New York, jumped to Chicago, over the course of a
Yep.
few years, and we just became steadily, and all of a sudden, because you don't know if it's going to be profitable or not,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, like 2.5 years in, it tips to profitability. And then away we went. But we were in 200 square feet for 2 years.
Mm.
And we moved to 1,000. We only lasted a year. We moved to 5,000 square feet. By the time it was done being built out, we had to add five more. We
Five more
eventually, five
venues.
more, 5,000
Oh,
more square feet. We
yep.
couldn't even move in because we already had more people and technology. And we ran it for almost 30 years and in aggregate generated over $1 billion of revenue. We peaked out at just under $50 million a year and held steady till Google ate us down.
To
So,
you.
yeah.
Wow. And so that was it had never been done before. You mentioned before that 1-800 numbers had just been coming out, and there would have been a couple of things. One, the vision that your business partner, or the founder of the idea had, and then the action that you would have had to have taken. Now, you mentioned that you could literally survive on the smell of an oily rag, which is very much an Australian sort of colloquialism. So you didn't have a lot of costs, but what made you? Because we'll get into the I guess the book and some of the key concepts of the book.
Yeah.
2.5 years in, and it would have had a bit of momentum generated when 50 calls came through on the first day. You think, wow, this is a good idea. Were there peaks and troughs though through those first years? Because like in many business, it's not necessarily a upward trajectory and a linear progress. What were some of the challenges you found within the first couple of years before you turned a profit that you reflect back on now and say, you know what, if we hadn't have taken those chances, shown that courage, been bold, we may never be sitting here today.
I mean, the biggest thing that happened was we realized that the contract that we had written, without getting too technical about it,
Yeah,
is we had given people exclusive territories that they would get all the patients from. And what
right.
happened is one dentist would be getting 50 patients a month, another be getting five because of the territories, because that's not the way the calls came in.
Yeah.
So we at that point we had 100 doctors. We said we have to change the contract you're losing your exclusive territories.
Hmm.
But in order for us to grow and survive and be able to spend enough in advertising, we're going to give you an average number of patients per month, 15 to 20 per month of new patients. 98 went along with it, signed the new contract, and two of them sued us.
Wow.
And one of them sued us and eventually settled fairly quickly. And the other one came at us with guns ablazing. His lawyer was his lawyer would say stuff like, "I'm going to own your business by the end of this." And I went like, "Yeah, and then you'll die a few hours later, but good for you." But it was that intense. And this was the first lesson in business. And I tell entrepreneurs this all the time. There's nothing more expensive than a cheap lawyer. And
So
we were
true.
trying to save money on lawyers, and all of a sudden we were just going, we were struggling with this litigation. Well, my partner says, one of my neighbors, he's a litigation attorney. Let's talk to him. Well, we talked to him. He says, I got this. He comes in 3 days later, they settle.
Wow.
He bitch slaps them in a deposition so hard, so fast that I was in awe of the guy. And it was over. And it settled reasonably. And we were off to the races after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But after that, it was one, always get a really good lawyer and always tell him everything.
Yeah.
Tell them that don't withhold anything because you disenable her or him to succeed
Mm.
because they get blindsided by
Yeah.
something. I didn't really want to tell you that. It's like, why not? You know. So anyway, so it was stuff like that. But hey, through 30 years, we went through, 9/11 happening and the 2008 Great Recession and there were twists and turns all along the way. And probably four near extinction events over the
Hmm.
course of that.
Hmm. But with each of those, apart from when you said Google at you, you came through, and that in itself takes courage. So one of the things I'd love to ask, particularly in those sort of moments, what kept you going? Because there's a great book out there called 3 Feet from Gold, where often when people have what appears to be an insurmountable obstacle placed in front of them, they often give up, not realizing that they were very close to having that breakthrough. So, what was it? Was it something in your innate character? Was it something that you had support around? What kept you going in those times?
The most powerful lesson in that early stage was we had to succeed. We had to figure it out. We had borrowed money from our family.
Yeah.
Not a lot, okay? So we had borrowed $30,000. We started a $50 million business with 30 grand of investment.
Wow.
But when you start a business, you sign personally on everything.
Mm.
Signed on the lease for the building, all the advertising. We were signed personally on everything. We were on the hook for the payroll, all of that stuff. So we didn't know the term, but we had burned the boats in the harbor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and so we didn't have money to throw at the problem. So we threw our brains at it
Hmm.
and our energy. And we got up every day and said, what are we going to do today to solve this? And when you do that, when you don't give yourself a way out and you can't throw money at the problem, you solve it. Unless the marketplace says we're not interested, but we
Yeah.
knew the marketplace was interested. We just didn't know if the formula was going to work yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not having a way out, and that's what a lot of people stop. Well, they'll run out of money. We got clever with money.
Mm.
And I'll give you just one crazy example is when we would sign the doctors up to be part of the program, it was $1,000 a month to be part of the program. Well, we charged them first and last payment,
Okay.
like it was an apartment, uh, and they paid it. That was our working capital.
Wow.
We eventually, our CFO, years in, our CFO said, you know, we've got like this $1.5 million on the balance sheet that is deposits. We're going to have to grind away at this because it's getting enormous. And we
Yeah.
said, all right, fine. But by then we could. But
Yeah.
it was little things like that that gave us the money. So if I needed money, we just found a couple more doctors.
Mm.
So and I would drive to pick up a check so
Yeah.
that we would be able to make payroll.
Yeah. And was when you talk about the first and last payment, did you have a minimum like contract length that would then get renewed? Like was it a 12 month or a
It
two
was
year?
it was a year-long contract that went month to month after the first year.
Okay. Okay. But you
But
got the
the thing is, we never held anybody to that
yeah.
because if it wasn't working for them, we wanted to, one, protect our reputation, and we wanted to treat people fairly. We
Yeah.
had a business principle that we operated from, which is, and it stayed that way. Everybody has to win.
Yeah.
The the potential patient, the dentist, our employees, us, and the world in general. We weren't going to do something that was going to harm the environment or create some negativity somewhere, or it was conning people where the customer didn't know they were losing, but they because we had those jobs. We
Yes.
had a sales job that was so bad, but the pitch was so well designed that the people didn't know what was happening to them, what they
Yeah.
were actually buying. Until I figured out, as soon as I figured out I couldn't sell anymore.
Yeah.
But we didn't want that. We wanted a
Yeah.
place where we wanted to go to work every day and everybody had to win.
I love that because often when people talk about sales, they have a negative connotation and it's almost like the push sale, the person that is trying to sell you a widget or service or something that you don't want, but they're going to use every possible trick in the book to try and manipulate you into buying something. But the fact that you created a business based on ethics and win-win, not just win for you, win for the client, win for the dentist, win for the greater good, is a really strong foundation. Which I love to ask you this question then. Based on that, did that enable you as an entrepreneur and as a business to be more bold because you were doing it from the right set of principles?
Oh yeah. And you know what? It creates a business culture where people appreciate working for you
Yeah.
because you're principled. And they, we had an entire department that was customer service. We averaged $100,000 a month in adjustments at our peak because we
Wow.
wanted, because some doctors would get a lousy set of results 1 month or 2 months
Yeah.
in a row. We say, look, we're gonna refund you some money, and that whole department, that the refunds or the adjustments cost us a lot, but so did 7 people in the department.
Yeah.
But that was important to us. We had to be fair to people, and because of it. And here's the other interesting thing that we sort of figured out after is, and like every good business solves a problem. And sometimes you don't know what the problem is until you're rolling. The real problem we solved was that people have as much apprehension about finding a dentist as they do going.
Wow.
And we gave them comfort because they had an empathetic voice on the other end of the phone talking to them about how they've been avoiding a dentist, and that now we're going to find them somebody that they're going to be comfortable and happy that they found,
Yeah.
and go and take care of themselves. That was the cornerstone of the business. Now, to do that, we had to have people who liked being on the phone and knew they were helping people.
Mm.
And the only way you do that is you take care of people.
Yeah.
We had health insurance. We paid for their parking. We gave sick leave and vacation time retirement matching funds. Because in my mind, if we couldn't do that, we didn't have a business.
Mm.
And there's plenty of people who go like, I'm just going to lay 1,000 people off at the end of the year so that we can all bonus the executives
Yeah.
and shareholders.
Yeah.
That was never us. Everybody would say, you guys could be making a lot more money, and say, yeah, but we wouldn't be happy with that money.
No. And it's a great philosophy because when you look after your employees and they're happy employees, they're more likely to look after the clients. They're going to be referring to the ultimate paying customer being your dentist.
They looked after the clients. They always took their side and helped them out, and they also defended the culture.
Mm. Yeah.
But part of the culture was my employees knew that the customer wasn't always right. Because sometimes that customer, it's the 80/20 rule, of course, in terms of, where your problems come from. But they knew that if some doctor called up and started cursing out somebody in customer service,
Yeah.
that they were off. They were all done.
Yeah.
And there was no getting back on.
Mm.
That apology accepted, you're still not on
Yeah.
because you don't get to do that. And when you do that for your people, they go to the wall for you.
They do.
And they wouldn't let me. I wanted to kick the guy off myself. It's like, no, no, Fred, you don't get to call him. Darren, I wanted to call these guys and go like, who the F do you think you are talking to my people like that? Okay. And they were upset about it because they suddenly were losing $100,000 of patient production because that's what our clients were doing on
Yeah.
average.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that was the solid foundation that the whole business was built on.
Love that. Love that. Fred, there's one thing I wanted to sort of circle back on, and that is you mentioned before that there was no turning back. We had to find a way. All right. So the metaphor was burning the boats, and it's a great metaphor, and it goes back to ancient times when people were I guess trying to colonize certain areas and they look around and all the boats are actually burning and there's no way out. We've got to find a way through or get a
Gonna
solution.
take the island now. Yep. Because
Totally. So
yeah.
I know you do a lot of public speaking and as a keynote speaker and a business advisor. There's two trains of thought out there today, which I'm interested in your thoughts. One is, hey, you've got to have plan B, plan C, plan D, right? Don't put all the eggs in one basket. And then the other side says, no, no. Once you've got an idea, you've got to be full on until there's some definitive evidence to say it's not working. So I guess your philosophy when you're talking to up and coming entrepreneurs, business owners, organizations that are trying to hit a market, this concept of burning the boats, how how important is that? Because as I said, there's a lot of people that think, you know what, we've got to have some options here. But for me, it's like, well, that's like an escape route, which might indicate you're not fully committed.
It, I think there's real power. Like I was saying, what we did is we had to make that lane work. Um, and there's real power in that because the other thing is that plan B and plan C it is like an escape hatch for you. And what happens is you don't really find out what it's going to take to make plan A work. Now, plan A may not work,
Mm,
but the marketplace has to tell you that.
yeah.
Not, oh, it's too hard. Okay. I love when people say that. It's like the harder, the better. That trims off your competition. Uh, and so work harder, be smarter than your competition, and you build you find your blue ocean that way.
Mm, mm,
Um, but if you go and the sidebar of that is if you're an entrepreneur, you have entrepreneur's disease, which is you think you can do three things or five. You can't stop saying yes. And what
yes.
happens is you dilute your focus.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, Rory Vaden, says diluted focus is diluted results.
Yes.
And
Love it.
man, you should have that tattooed on your forehead backwards so you can read it every morning when you're an entrepreneur because you you need to stay with that thing until the marketplace shuts you down. And sometimes within that is the pivot. And
Yep.
you just and so you have to be listening. The market, some young friends of mine that I coached, I told them they were coming into the dental industry, and I gave them some, like a 2-day download of like, this is the client you're trying to sell to, this is the industry that you're going to struggle with, and these are the challenges, and these are the upsides, and all of that. And I broke down their business model, and I had them make adjustments with it. Well, they hit what I call the don't give a shit factor uh, in the marketplace, but there was one feature that everybody loved.
Yep.
And it was like an add-on thing. Well, they peeled off everything over a year and just focused on that. They just sold that business for $35 million dollars
Wow,
with
there
the
you go.
with the feature. Because that's how good the feature was. But it was just paying attention.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what is the customer telling me he doesn't want? And what does she does want?
Mm.
What does she want? So that, but that only happens when you sweat it out, when you go
Mm.
through the dips and the lags and the shutdown and the vicissitudes of the economy.
Yes.
Because you
100%.
can bounce from one idea to another and never get anywhere. And and sometimes your business is going to fail utterly, but that will be an abundance of information.
Yeah, it's feedback. Absolute
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah,
And I see that a lot in sales organizations. And you see, particularly on LinkedIn, you see some salespeople who have, for example, a 12-month tenure, 18-month tenure, maybe a 2-year tenure, and they bounce from company to company to company. And you wonder, what's going on there? And often there's a little bit of a trail of destruction behind them because they're
yeah.
searching for the next thing, thinking the next company, the grass is going to be greener. This is going to be a better opportunity. I'll finally be able to find my people. And yet, what they haven't realized is perhaps there's something that they're doing or something they are being that is being attractive to that change and those challenges.
Yeah, where are the easy sales?
Yeah,
All
that's
nothing
right.
good leads, the Glengarry leads, as we
Yes,
like to say. Where are those leads? Where's that organization? Well, they don't really need salespeople if the leads are pouring. There's order takers at that point.
absolutely.
If the leads are the quality leads are pouring in.
Yeah.
And there's very few jobs like that. And it's mostly dealing illegal drugs that works that way.
Well, the thing is, you got to
No
work.
marketing going on
No,
there.
no, there's not. It's underground network. That's what it is. Maybe the dark webs. So Fred, I'd love to then touch base now on the book. So super bold, and you've got a copy over your right shoulder there, which is showing the front page. But I also notice there's a copy in your bookshelf over your left over your left shoulder as
Yeah.
well. So, what was the catalyst for writing the book? Is it a representation of some of the principles that you've utilized to get access to wider people, or is there some other reason why you wrote it?
It was my personal journey because I was a painful introvert
Hmm.
growing up and missed all sorts of opportunities, fun, adventure, girlfriends, opportunities, promotions, all because I was stopping myself, hesitating, worried about how I would fail or be rejected or any of those. And I just kept stacking regrets till I
Yeah,
couldn't take it anymore. And I figured I had to find my way out of it.
yeah,
Uh, and so I had a long journey of becoming the person I am today, somebody willing to start a business, take that kind of risk and do all of those bold things all along the way, including getting on stage in front of people. And I tried stand-up comedy. I did improv comedy for years. I did all of the stuff that people would say, how does anybody do that? Why would anybody subject themselves to that? And it's because I developed an appetite for being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because that's where the growth came from. And so at one point, I was giving what were my life lessons, my 10 life lessons at the time, to a group of high school kids. And one of the things I said is boldness is a superpower. And the sooner you learn it as a life skill, the more profoundly wonderful and satisfying your life will be. And so they came up to me after and they said, "That's really great. How? How do we do that?" Because all of them worry about in high school is what everybody else thinks about them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to figure out how I did it. And what happened, what emerged in the book is all of these lessons I learned and this pathway. And I compressed the process considerably from the decades it took me into how somebody can start in 90 days to have a significant impact on their boldness.
Yeah.
And it's because some of these things are very counterintuitive. Because people would say, well, I would be more confident if I would be bolder if I were more confident. And I'd say you've got it backwards. It's actually
Yeah.
bold action when you're not confident that builds your confidence.
Yes.
As soon as you understand that formula, you realize you just have to take bold action, even though you don't know how it's going to go, and you're kind of uncomfortable about it
Mm.
because you will get better.
Mm.
You will discover something. And if you pursue comfort as an end in itself, that's a dead end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because life is short, man. The clock runs out, and if you want to coast, you're gonna be on your deathbed going, I should have, in about 20
Oh
categories,
man.
you know?
As we say in Australia, I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda, but I didn't.
Exactly. Oh yeah. I mean, and that's unfortunately that's the number one thing people say on their deathbed is I lived a life by my own design instead of the one other people expected of me.
So just on that, I was listening to a podcast not long ago, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it might have been either the High Performance podcast, a couple of guys from the UK, or it might have even been the Diary of a Sea. I can't quite remember, but they were talking with people who were in the 80s, 90s, and some over 100, and asking them those sort of questions. What sort of advice would you give to people sort of in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and some degree 50s that perhaps you've learned now in your 80s, 90s, and over 100 that you wish you had have taken advice on or you'd give advice to? And it's really interesting. They all said in some degree life is really short. It goes like in a nanosecond. And none of them said, geez, you know what, I wish I had have spent more time in my office. I would have spent more time working. It was all, I should have taken that chance. I should have gone and asked that person out, but I didn't. I should have asked for that job, but I didn't. I should have gone for that promotion, but I didn't. Right? And they say, just do it, which is a great lesson.
Yeah, and think about 100-year-old person saying life is short, but
Yes.
that's how it feels. I mean, and what happens is that accelerates. Decades go by, not years
Yeah.
after a while. And you don't have the stamina, you don't have the willpower, you don't have the resources
Mm,
to do those things. And what you stack are regrets.
mm.
And I don't want to stack any regrets. Can you hear that sound?
No.
Good. Okay. I just the heater came on because it's cold around here, and I just want to make sure it's not the mic's not picking it up. And so people at that age, and the sooner you learn this, the only regrets that they have are the things they didn't do, the
Mm,
things they didn't try, the things they didn't say.
mm.
They didn't speak up, they didn't step up, they didn't start the business. So what if it failed?
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, I tried once and I stopped."
Yeah.
They didn't ask that person to marry them, and then they watched them marry somebody else. They just this is what happens to people, and they become managers of their regrets.
Yes. And
And
that
bold
starts to,
people don't. Bold people, they're living their fullest life. They're bringing their full self to the world.
so with that, I'd love to ask, I'd love to know some of the key principles because you mentioned 10 in your book. But before I ask some of your, it's like asking if you got favorite children, favorite people, etc., etc. So I'm conscious of that. But in terms of boldness and the relationship with risk, because there'll be
Yeah.
people out there that say, I can't afford to risk this, therefore I can't afford to be bold because if it doesn't work, the consequences are catastrophic and I can't deal with that. So, how do you, I guess, balance or at least consider boldness, having the courage to take action, and risk in terms of how do I manage the risk so that I'm not putting myself or my family or my loved ones in, for example, financial Armageddon by being bold and not giving a shit to what happens. I'll find a way.
Yeah. That there's a big difference between being bold and being careless.
Yes.
And sometimes the line is pretty fine, but uh the comparison I use is bungee jumping versus base jumping.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, if you don't know what base jumping is, it's these people who put on a parachute and jump off a cliff where they're not supposed to be, and they don't want people to be doing that. And they try to go as long as possible without opening the parachute. And
Yeah.
the most ironic thing that ever happened in base jumping was this woman to protest this national park not allowing base jumping, did a base jump. Her chute didn't open and she slammed into the ground and died. Now, bungee jumping, and I've done it in New Zealand several times and other places as well, it has like a zero death rate
Yeah.
because it's safe. It just feels terrifying. But I've been with people who did it and it changed their life because they said, I was so scared of it and it was so much fun. Why am I going to be scared of anything ever again?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, there's careless. It's not boldness is not about being thoughtless or not
Mm.
considering the consequences. It's considering the consequences and then considering the consequences of not doing it.
Yeah.
And those outweigh it. And that's when you act. But
Love it.
most of the time, what people are stopping themselves from, nothing bad is going to happen. They stop themselves. They see somebody they really want to meet. They see Darren Mitchell. They say, I've been listening to that guy's podcast for years. I want to talk to him, but he doesn't want to talk to me. I'm nobody, I can't talk to him. He's gonna shun me and I'm gonna want to go slit my wrists. Um, Instead of just walking up and saying, Darren, I'm so excited to meet you because I've been a long time listener and you've had a tremendous impact on my sales career. And I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? You're going to say, let's take a selfie, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But human beings play this. What's the worst thing that could happen? They're really good at creating it, but very bad at calculating the odds of it actually happening. Old people have figured out that 99% of the time, nothing bad happens. Nobody stops you. It goes better than you expected. Sometimes something incredibly unexpected and wonderful happens.
Mm.
And it's happened to them enough where they get this feedback loop of like, I'm going in to see what the heck happens. And
That's it.
something amazing often does. A
It
lot of times
does.
it's not even what they were aiming for. Maybe they
Exactly.
had no agenda. I love having no agenda and seeing what happened. I just did this. I just went to a convention in New York that there was really nothing for me to do
Yep.
that was so abundant in the 3 days that I was there that I can't keep up with all of the things that happen and execute on all the things that happen. I had no plan.
Yep. Love it.
But I
Love it.
wasn't going to die and I wasn't going to lose my fortune to
Well,
go. I didn't have a plan because I wanted to discover.
yeah.
Which meant I had to meet people. I had to go to things that I could tell myself, why I don't want to go to that dinner. It's going to be boring. I'll be stuck at the wrong table. I mean, we got this bullshit that we can run in our heads that is so self-defeating.
It
If you
is.
could quiet it down a little bit,
Yeah.
it would
Yeah.
make all the difference. Imagine if you were just 10% bolder in your
Yeah.
life, the profound difference that would make.
So just on that, so an example, because you mentioned before, uh, you were an introvert. Now I'll be interested, do you consider, and I don't like labeling people introverts or extroverts, but a lot of people have introverted tendencies, right? So they're not necessarily going to go out there and say, "Hey, I'm here, look at me," and it's being bold in that respect. What do you think of this term curiosity? Because going to a convention like that with no plan and having the capacity to actually stick your hand out, say good day, network with people, ask questions, be curious. What I always say is be interested in other people because that process will often result in you being interesting to those people. Because you don't go in there talking about, I'm Fred, I'm a founder of a 1-800 dentist, and we've done over $1 billion, and they're thinking, but you go in and ask questions about them. So curiosity as it relates to boldness.
Yeah, you have to be bold enough to not try to impress people.
There it is.
That's because that's what you're doing when you
Yeah,
do that stuff. And you know what impresses people when you're humble.
yeah,
Because there is a real element of humility when you are really bold and when you're super bold,
mm,
is because you know how much more you could become. You
mm,
have so much more to learn that you don't have time to brag.
yeah,
Most people, those people who are bragging about themselves constantly, and we have a president right now who does that, and it comes from insecurity.
yes,
Like bold people who are really successful don't have to read their resume to you and tell you how great they are.
no,
And so when that whole concept of trying to impress people can hinder you so much. You don't have to be interesting. In
yeah,
fact, that puts a lot of pressure on the other person. If you're trying to be clever or funny and you actually pull it off,
yeah,
then they go like, I can't measure up to this
yeah. I
to
can't compete with this
this guy's
person.
achievements. Instead of saying, "Oh, you did what? I mean, what was the most interesting thing you did this month?
Mm,
Really? Tell me more about that." The
yeah,
power of tell me more is so strong. And if
yes,
you could just shut up about yourself and say it. I have been to events where people came away and would tell me after, and friends of mine would say, "These people thought you were really interesting." I said, "They know nothing about me. I told them nothing. I just was curious about them, and I was genuinely curious. You know what? Because everybody's interesting.
oh,
If you peel
absolutely,
it up, half the time we know somebody in common. That's
yeah,
the crazy thing about the world is
yep,
if you talk to somebody long enough. This is a Fred statistic, which is one I make these up, but I think they're true. Is 50% of people, if you dig long enough, you know somebody in common.
yep,
It's crazy.
it
In
is
7 billion people, in a world of 7 billion people, happens to me so often, it's ridiculous.
2 degrees of separation.
Yeah, yeah, five. That's the gross exaggeration.
That's right. I love that. I love that because I firmly believe that, and we'll talk about AI in a second, but I firmly believe that the differentiation for many leaders into the future will be a level of curiosity that they're prepared to bring to the table. Because I'm not sure about you, but in Australia, a lot of businesses are filled with leaders who are trying to one up themselves against everybody else. It's not cooperation, it's competition, and it's almost like how loudly can I tell people how good I am versus the ones that don't do that, but they are genuinely interested in others and they're genuinely curious. And this is not something you can just bullshit. It's genuine curiosity. They're the ones that often, it might take them longer, but they're the ones that'll have more sustainable success because they'll look around them and they'll have more people wanting to choose to follow them because of how they made people feel.
And with that, I tell people that when they say, "Well, I'm not that curious about people," I said, "That's good that you know that. Find out why.
Yes.
You need to dig into yourself and find out why you're dismissing 99.99% of the population as
Yeah.
not worthy of your time or your attention or your interest.
Yeah.
Is that something else? Because I think it is.
I think it might be.
I think you're so insecure because you're letting yourself being tormented by comparing yourself or creating a comparison.
Mm.
They're better looking than me, they're smarter than me, they're more successful than me, they're younger than me, they're taller than me. They have more opportunity than I do. There's the expression comparison is the thief of joy,
Mm.
maybe one of the most powerful lessons that you can learn. And when you can abandon that,
Yeah.
and the only reason you want to be competing with somebody is to make yourself better and say, "Wow, they're really challenging me."
Yeah.
You're in a race. I mean, I love those people that when they are in the Olympics and they run a race and they come in second, they walk right up and congratulate that person who came in first and went like,
Yeah.
"I can't believe you beat me, but I'm coming after you
Yeah. That's
next."
exactly right.
Because that makes you run faster.
Yeah.
That's what you do it for. You don't do it to make yourself feel better by diminishing who they are. That's petty, and it's not healthy. It's
It's
not.
not.
It's not the pathway to joy. I guarantee it.
So, Fred, I love to, and I'll ask you shortly where people can get the books. I really encourage them to do so. If there was a favorite principle looking back, given that was your, I guess, your blueprint, your life that has been put into a book form. If there's one core principle that you always come back to as the first one or the default, or let's just say your favorite to help people become super bold, what is that for you?
Yeah, that to me, and it came from the high school kids actually, because I knew that's what I solved for myself, is if you can just stop worrying about what other people think
Yeah.
and limit the number of people whose opinions matter to a tiny handful, that will transform how you move through the world.
Mm.
And it doesn't happen easily because we want to fit in. We want to be noticed and known and all of that. And we worry about what other people are thinking. But here's the secret. They're not thinking about you.
No,
They're not thinking
that's
about you
right.
anywhere near as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
And so are you. So if you're doing it and they're doing it, let it go.
Yeah.
There's, there's five people whose opinions about everything matter to me. Everybody else's opinion, it's because I've come to them as an expert. I
Hmm.
regard them as an expert in that area,
Yeah.
you know? Uh, and if the rest of them, what they think of me is none of my business.
Mm. Love that.
It's their issue because they don't actually know me.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're not qualified. And it's
Yeah,
just it's just an opinion,
they
but it
can
shouldn't
judge me
become my
any way they
reality.
want. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the final question, because I know you got to get to a dinner date, and it looks like I might just take a little bit extra time to say so to
Yeah.
apologize. We talked before we press record about AI and how AI is almost seeping into every nook and cranny of our lives, and it will continue to be quite pervasive in what we do. And there'll be people that sort of reject it. There'll be people that embrace it. I'm really interested in your take on what people can do, particularly business people, sales people, just humans in the age of AI, particularly as a differentiator in the marketplace.
Yeah, because AI is going to take over all of the routine tasks and do them way better and do them 24 hours a day and get smarter in those 24 hours and do them better and better and better. Your ability to connect with people and be decisive, those two things those are going to be your irreplaceable advantages because the AI is never going to do that. The AI is not going to be decisive. It's going to inform decisions. But if you learn anything in business, you learn that there's no such thing as getting enough information to make a perfect decision.
Yeah.
There's deciding
Mm.
and making it work.
Yeah.
And so, but you have to be able to connect with people, and you have to be able to communicate your ideas clearly to individuals and to groups. And if you
Mm.
don't, and that takes boldness to develop that ability, and AI is never going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's you're going to be your irreplaceable advantage if you develop those skills, and you do it as early as you can because AI is moving fast.
It is. It is. So with that, I highly recommend that people need to grab hold of your book because that could literally be the blueprint to help them do just that. So for people who'd like to connect with you, learn more about you, but also get a copy of Super Bold, where is the best place for them to do that?
So it's on Amazon
Yep.
in audio book, and it's me reading the audio book, and there's a Kindle version and there's a hardcover version. And so that's the easiest place to get them. And my website is my name,
Hmm.
fredjoyal.com. You can find out all sorts of other stuff about me. I have a newsletter that comes out every week that with insights I've learned the hard way because
Hmm.
uh, pain is a powerful instructor, and
It is.
I've got the lashes to prove it, and the scars. But yeah, and it's you can find me, you can see lectures I've done, and my YouTube channel's got a bunch of stuff too. But if you want me as a keynote speaker, I will light your team up and
Love it.
create a bold year ahead for you and your company and your team.
Sensational. Awesome. Well, I'll put those on the show notes. And one final question: if there was a parting piece of wisdom that perhaps we haven't covered that you think the audience would benefit from hearing, maybe as a reflection piece for the last few weeks of 2025, as we're recording this, when people are listening to this, it's probably going to be early in the 2026 year. So an opportunity for them to have a fast start to 2026. What would that piece of lasting advice be?
The thing I'd like you to transform yourself into is this very simple thought. Imagine that wherever you go, you say, I belong wherever I am. Never decide you don't belong.
Hmm.
Just think about belonging wherever you are.
Yeah.
And it will have a profound effect on what you radiate to people.
Yeah.
It's not about faking it till you make it. It's about I am worthy. Find
Yes.
out what your unworthiness message is, decode it, and erase it.
Yeah. Love it. Great advice, my friend. Can I thank you? What a wonderful conversation. I've learned heaps, and I love about well even the quote you used earlier, diluted focus equals diluted results. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to give you attribution when I use that in some upcoming sessions I'm running for sales teams. So that's a really interesting one. But thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on the podcast. May you enjoy a very, very fruitful, productive, and restful, if that's what you're into, rest of 2025, and may 2026 be extraordinary as well.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, Fred. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.